Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, I interview a fellow small business owner or an expert, and they share their stories, their lived experiences, the wins and the losses, and their best advice to help you, the listener, get the most you can from your own business. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. And thanks also to Kerr Capital, supporters of the show. Welcome back to another edition of Small Business Banter Community Radio and Podcast. Last week, if you listened in, you would have heard Francis Loughran, the founder of Future Food, and I talk about how Francis got the business started and ready for sale. And this week, we're going to turn the discussion to the process for preparing and then ultimately selling. So a big welcome back, Francis, to Small Business Banter.
Thank you, Michael.
If you haven't listened to last week's episode, you can do that on the podcast. In summary, though, what we did was set up this conversation now, and Francis went from a standing start to a business over 34 years that employed at its peak, I think, 25 people. Correct me if I'm wrong, Francis, but including working with large international companies using their food and beverage expertise. It is an extraordinary business. It's recently been acquired by a couple of key staff, and that was a great outcome for everybody. So today, and in the theme of helping other owners who think about what to do with their own exit, I wanted to really draw from you, Francis, your personal experience of the phase or the phases from when you first thought it's time for me to move on, what you did next, and what the process was like, what you learned from it, what you might do differently, if anything. So you had how long ago, let's start it with this, how long ago, the business only sold in the last 6 or 9 months. So at what stage did you decide it's time for me to think about it and then time for you to start doing something about an exit plan?
Look, I had been running the business for over 30 years. And during that period of time, I always knew that I was setting the business up so that it would be sold. And the reason why I kept a very clear focus on the systems and procedures, the technology, the software, the computer setup that I had, and the range of services that we offered and the range of services that we had to continue to evolve, was about that I would be able to sell the business when the right opportunity came. I had turned 62 and a half. I worked out that I really wanted a buyer for the business in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And once I aired that openly with my senior management team, they were the people that said to me, we would like you to consider us as 3 mid to late 40-year-old men who'd been with the company, all of them for a minimum of 7, 8, 9 years. So they wanted to secure their future, and I could give back to them for what they'd given to me in loyalty and professionalism. And I enjoyed that journey of giving it back to them in the form of the sale of the business, with me still being available to help or provide advice going forward.
Right. So it looked to you every bit like that team were the natural buyers of the business because they knew the business. They knew it was, if they didn't buy it, maybe it was going to, the opportunity would disappear.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it is important as well because there's not that many people out there that would buy a food and beverage consultancy business because technically you have to be competent across food and beverage. Secondly, you have to have a strong network built and understand your clients' needs. And then thirdly, you have to manage a team of people where projects are all different. And that team of people have to see you as the leader that's giving good guidance with a disciplined approach to how it's going to be done.
Yeah.
And consulting is about time management and client satisfaction. Two very simple principles. And those are the principles that I've worked on. Taking your consultants on the journey, managing the time, and then managing the client's expectations and outcome.
So it sounds to me a lot like you, right up until that point, you continued to invest in the systems, the IT. There was no backing off by the sound of it because you had to maintain a vibrant business to make it sellable. Is that?
Yeah. That's correct. And even during the COVID period, for the 2 years when we weren't able to travel overseas, we were restricted in our meetings. We were restricted, and everybody knows what COVID meant for small business. I still spent $100,000 on 3 computer packages developed for market research, pinpointing the data, setting up a new computer platform and CRM management platform, and that database coupled with a management system supported the business and supported it right through to the stage for the selling of the business because everything was ship-shape.
It's an important signal, I guess, to the staff that because I've worked in quite a few of these transitions from an owner to a team of senior managers or staff, and they're tricky processes because both parties work together day to day, and then at night you're potentially negotiating or coming to terms with how the deal's going to work. So it's not straightforward. It needs a lot of planning and guidance. But it sounds to me like that investment was a very timely way to just to remind or to reinforce that the business is full of potential, and you're backing that with a $100K investment in that case in some software and other.
Yes, most definitely. First of all, understanding that the business was set up, it was staffed with a management and office management and accountant team. The graphic designer to support the consultants, my input into the consultants into every project. So we're very clear on what allocation of work, what technologies there to assist them, what past projects can be learned from, and what industry associations, etc., and colleagues and associates that we can bring in order to set up the structure, what I call the program of work. And the program of work is managed carefully so that timelines are met, quality standards are achieved, time management is contained, and most of all, the client is taken on the journey at the right stages for presentations and update meetings.
See, you could see that it would be there'd be an opportunity to say, "Oh, I don't need to spend that $100,000," isn't there?
Well, you could do that, but we have to remain competitive.
Yeah.
And in order for us to remain competitive, we need to be able to be time efficient so our fees don't overrun. And then secondly, we need to be able to tell our client that we're using a program that looks at the trade area and can tell our client at the touch of an app on our smartphone what is the mix of that trade area. Yeah. We can simply take our finger, draw the map around the geographical footprint, push a button, get the cuisines, get the average spend, get the tenancy location, and then get the total volume within that trade area.
And by the way, Francis, I think you've done absolutely the right thing to continue to invest in the business. I guess my point was there's when you're coming up to selling a business, it's not the time. If you want to sell it at its fullest potential, it's not the time to cut back on things that will make the business better, because it becomes a bit of a vortex where you show. You keep that money, but you don't get a handsome return on the increased productivity or efficiency or profit. So, I think you've, for any owner listening, that's keeping your foot on the accelerator in every possible way, sends all the right signals, and also just keeps the business relevant and competitive, as you say. So, when you did decide to exit, what were your first couple of steps in terms of preparing information, working with your advisors? What were the couple of things you did there?
Well, the first thing was I did research on how to sell a business, and I obviously listened very carefully to what I learned from you, explaining what the main hurdles would be, the time frame, the ability to listen, respect, negotiate, and to understand that there may be some fears. And there are fears. There's fears from the person selling the business. Am I doing the right thing? There's a fear from the people buying the business. Am I qualified to do this? Will I succeed? I don't want to look as if I've a failure if the business doesn't succeed. So all those emotions are there. So I made a very clear list, which was the plan to sell. What is included, the suggested time frame, the suggested process, how the existing staff would be managed, how I would be available throughout the process and after the process, and that I wanted trust, I wanted respect, and I wanted efficiency.
In the process of dealing.
In the process as well, I didn't want people dragging their feet.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't want the third-party lawyers dragging their feet, and I didn't want questions unanswered over a period of 48 hours. Yeah. I wanted people to stay efficient. I created a checklist, and it had yes, no, action, and date, and that live checklist was open to the purchasers and myself. And they could go and complete it, and we viewed it every day for the period of 50 days.
Yeah. So how long did the process take from start to finish, roughly?
I would say that from open discussion to selling the business would have been somewhere in the region of about 4 months. Okay,
which is very good going, I got to say. But true to form, Francis, there was a system or a procedure there which I love. And it's so important to be transparent. It doesn't matter whether you're selling to an external party or to a team of internal managers or employees. Transparency is so important that both parties know what's expected of each other, and you dictate. You laid that out early on, and that there are, to get these deals done, it takes a lot of energy and investment of time and emotions. So you don't go from A to Z. You go from A to B and then to C, and so that project plan, if you like, is so critically important. We will come back in a moment. I just wanted to let those listening in that we're talking with I'm talking with Francis Loughran, founder of Future Food, and we're talking about today his experience in preparing and then selling recently to a team of senior staff members. So, Francis, so true to form, you got the process really well laid out. Can you talk about some of the things that challenged you along the way in dealing with the buyers who happen to be staff?
Look, I think first of all that they were confident because they were very close to the business, so they had opinions on things, and that's fine. Those opinions have to be shared, they have to be discussed, and they have to be rationalised by both their thinking of something and my thinking. The fact that COVID may have affected the business, I saw that as a short term, and that we would result in going back to full capacity of work, business and travel as soon as possible. Secondly, there might have been an understanding that certain segments of the industry, such as shopping centres, wouldn't generate so much revenue in the future because they were doing a lot of the work themselves. That is true, but there's still lots of redevelopment and lots of exposure to smaller shopping centres and medium-sized shopping centres that are in fact adding food and beverage and do require our services.
Yeah, so it was a tumultuous time, and so layering on a sale of the business, even to a team who knew an awful lot about the day-to-day, was still incredibly difficult. So yes,
it was, and there had to be patience and there had to be respect, and even when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of what the business tidy up of when the work finishes under my ownership, and the invoice period to collect the money of 60 days, and how that process would be continued, and that even the secretarial support, which is the office manager, would share both businesses for 3 months afterwards. So those things are all the nuts and bolts that have to be negotiated on respect.
Yeah. So as part of the project plan, you had a couple of external advisors. So I'm assuming your accountant was integrally involved.
That's
there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. I had learned a lot from you, which was great, and the advice that you gave me up to the stage where I had to make the decision.
Yep.
So that was excellent. The accountant's advice was excellent. Lawyers can get in the way. With all due respect, they can slow things down or ask questions that they know they want to ask because it fulfills their need. But I had the answers in my head quite often to give the lawyer the answer without going to the other party.
Yeah. It's one of those commercial professional relationships that you have to tightly manage, because
you do.
And there is a way to achieve that, and there are great and a really good commercial lawyer is enormously valuable in a process like this, but it goes to picking the right to the same extent probably accountant. You just got to pick those that have experience in what is a pretty dynamic and sometimes stressful environment. So otherwise it becomes a bit of a, they're not super experienced, or they're just motivated to rack up the hours or the 6-minute intervals that become costly. So you've got to take the lead like you did. Did you have any sort of major hiccups or surprises, and how did you handle that? Because the closer you get to the end, which everybody's focused on, the more everyone's invested, the more the emotions can play a role if it's not managed. So did you have any surprises or hiccups?
The key things for me was obviously negotiating the sale price, making sure that the finance was available by the other parties, that the dates for that would work in line with what I had planned. And then other key things would be that instead of me staying on 1 month later in order to do a handover, I started my 1 month's handover 1 month before the end. And that meant that I was still in the business in a useful capacity and not just feeding information into the new owners. So I wasn't continuing to live in the house that I sold to the new occupants.
Yeah, okay.
I was moving out the day that I sold.
Yeah, okay. So leading up to that, how long did it take you in that 4 months or so to get to the point where you both agreed on? You don't have to tell me the commercial in confidence detail, but did you have the price struck relatively early in the process and then work towards all the other things, or did that come?
And for me, I knew that other things would fall into place, which would have been the trade restriction, the what was included in the sale and what wasn't included in the sale, any future terms of my engagement, all of those things. I was confident that I could work through those and negotiate and get a result. The biggest thing up front is the selling price, and then stopping the devaluation process of that over the periods of 4 weeks negotiation.
Okay, yeah. So what you're saying, I think, is that the deal, yes, it is the price you achieve for the business, but it's also you might trade up or down from that depending on how much time post the sale is demanded of you, for example.
That's correct. That's correct.
And that's a really important area of confusion, not an important area of confusion. It's a common area of confusion where there is a tendency, or can be a tendency, to focus on a headline number, $1 million just to make up, but and everyone rattles along and thinks we're all into something, and then these other things that you just talked about. What do you expect of me, and for how long, and who takes the debtors, and who takes, this is technical stuff, but it's where the process can fall away really rapidly. I think from memory you used something akin to a heads of agreement or a memorandum of understanding.
That's correct.
And it is a vital document to guide everybody. What it means, if you haven't heard of it, it's essentially an agreement to meet certain deadlines, to do certain things, and to document the stuff that you've agreed already, and note the things that you haven't agreed. And as the heads of agreement or memorandum of understanding is a living document, but as you agree something, you tick it off, and you kind of narrow it down onto the things that are left. And it's such a, if I haven't explained that terribly well, just take it from both of us.
It is, Michael. What you're saying is 100% true. It is a framework for the detail. It's a framework for controlling emotion. It's a framework for setting out what is legal and what is to be obliged, and also the commitment of both parties.
That's an excellent way to describe it, Francis. Yeah.
And it also controls element of emotion. Emotion around this will be discussed. This will be discussed a second time. This date is the date we're working towards. Any negotiation is built on mutual respect. So it is a framework and a template for many elements of the business transition.
Yeah, and what it is a complete contrast to is where somebody says, I'll give you this much money for the business and we'll work out the details later. And that kind of approach always fails, always falls over, or creates so much stress and anxiety. So, yeah, that framework's an excellent way to think about it, Francis. And, it's paid dividends for you in terms of the efficiency with which you got through, from in tricky times to a sale to some good people. So that's I don't know, 3-4 months ago now. Can we just spend the last few minutes? What's next for Francis Loughran, and having freed yourself of your of a business you built over 34 years? It must be both refreshing but also reflective.
Well, I decided to finish work on the last day of November 2022 because I'd never had a December where I could plan a summer, organise my Christmas presents before the 24th of December at 9:55 p.m, find a turkey, find a Christmas gift, or go for a glass of champagne. So I enjoyed the December-January holidays immensely. I've just applied to become a board member for TAFE Victoria, and that is being considered at the minute. I'm organising an international conference in Perth in Bunker Bay in West Australia for the 11th to the 16th of November this year for the International Association of Food Service Consultants. I'm working with my 3 charities at the minute, and I've got another couple of small business investments that I keep me busy. So for now, I'll wait and see what happens with the board position, which is a paid position, and also a part-time position allows me to balance other things. And I'm writing a lot of industry articles on the need for training in order to show that we do have a career in hospitality, and that hospitality is just not a part-time waiter's job.
It sounds like you've gone from a full book to a full book, which I love. You're continuing to endorse and give back to the industry that you love through this, what you just spoke about there in yes. Reframing hospitality as a career rather than just as a yes. part-time job. It's such important work. If people wanted to reach, that's a wonderful collection of things you're involved in, and we can put links to some of them if you want on the show notes. But in the meantime, if somebody wanted to reach out to you or follow you, what's because you're incredibly active and got really meaningful things to say about the industry.
They can just go straight onto LinkedIn. So it's just Francis Loughran, and the company's called Francis on Food.
Francis on Food. All right. And you're one of the things that we like on Small Business Banter is this sense that you've come on generously to give some time and your experience directly. It's much better coming from other owners. That holds true for me that. Owners listen to other owners and will benefit so much. And the exit process is a reality for many, if not most, business owners. And your experience is incredibly relevant. So thank you so much, Francis.
Michael, thank you, and thank you for what you've done in setting me up on the journey of being able to think about my business, to think about the personal element of when a good time is to sell your business, and then secondly, what you need to know to sell your business. So thank you for that, and I've enjoyed today's session. Yeah. And please let anyone reach out to me via LinkedIn, send a message, or it's francismloughran@gmail.com.
Excellent, Francis. It's so good that your business is in a set of good hands and that you're continuing to stay involved in the industry. Well done, and appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, Michael. Run off. Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So that is all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. I continue to be inspired bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. If you want to listen to any past episode, jump onto your podcast platform of choice and search Small Business Banter. There you will find a diverse and fascinating collection of small business owners and experts openly discussing and sharing their experiences. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact me, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And it would be great to have you tune in the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.